The April deadline has come and gone, but it's still tax season here in New Mexico. The Albuquerque Journal reports that Governor Martinez spoke last week at the 14th Annual New Mexico Tax Research Institute Policy Conference, and she called for a reform on the tax code. In the special session she has promised to schedule, she is likely to reintroduce a tax overhaul bill that would eliminate more than 100 tax breaks and would lower the state's base rate. And a controversial proposed tax on sugary drinks was soundly defeated this week by Santa Fe voters. The so-called soda tax would have imposed a 2 cents per ounce tax on sugary beverages, and the money generated was intended to open up about 1,000 pre-K slots for Santa Fe youth. Let me start with you, Mary T. Torres. You know, something interesting about this whole thing, when you talk about both these issues, your sense of the soda tax fight. Why did it lose? What happened?
I think clearly the people in Santa Fe just weren't, obviously they weren't in favor of it, but I think it was more of an apples and oranges kind of a view. Like, why are we taxing drinks to raise money for preschool? And I think people felt boxed in, you know.
Boxed in how?
Well,
That's an interesting way to put it.
I think they felt boxed in because it, you know, no offense, but I just didn't think it was a great idea. And so if you vote against it, does that mean you're voting against kids? Right. But then you vote for it, and you're taxing something that just doesn't really make sense that you're taxing. We were talking earlier that if you taxed green chili, perhaps then, yay,
right.
that everyone would be using.
Exactly right.
But I don't think that it was defeated because people don't want to pay the tax. And I don't think that, you know, the governor had mentioned something about that. And with all due respect to the governor, I don't think that that's why it was defeated. I think that it just wasn't a really good idea that was thought through.
Just on its base presentation. Laura, I gotta wonder if the mayor of Santa Fe and others who supported this, I kind of wonder if they anticipated how warm this thing was going to get. Do you know what I mean? I got to think, you know, maybe this thing just got a little out of control. From what Mary just mentioned, the setup was not quite there. Would you agree with that?
I think what Mary was talking about, and from a tax policy perspective, she's talking about the nexus between taxing something and what the outcome is going to be. And I think in tax policy in general, you need to have a nexus there. There has to be a connection between what you're taxing and where that's going. And so, you know, in general, you want to have the broadest base possible to be able to get revenue in. And in this case, we were talking about a very specific tax on sugary drinks, and they called it a soda tax, but we're also talking about juices that are not 100% juice.
Yep.
That includes a lot of different products, iced tea, Gatorade, a lot of things. And I do think
powdered
that it was,
lemonade, there's all kinds of things.
Exactly, and I do think that there was a disproportionate amount. I mean, a lot of poor people tend to, not just soda, and I know a lot was said about the connection between soda and obesity, but a lot of families can't afford the pure juice, and they buy that juice that has the extra sugar in it. That's what they provide to their families. So I do think it was a regressive tax in general. And just from a policy perspective, I also think that the city itself they had just some communication issues because they do have a surplus right now. And while some of them said, well, it's nowhere near enough to pay for pre-K, well, that may be the case, but having a surplus still puts you in a position of saying, look, we want even more for this purpose. And I think that a lot of people still find it a laudable purpose, would definitely consider other sources of revenue. And I think just in general, the state should be providing more for pre-K statewide, not just the cities, municipalities. I think that they're being crunched enough. We're hearing every day about, you know, Valencia County and other small municipalities and counties that are having to think now about downsizing their employees. So losing jobs because they don't have enough of that state share is a huge problem, and I think this is also being compounded by the state's revenue problems.
Good point there. We'll come back to that in a second. Marcia, it did not do well in moderate and low-income parts of Santa Fe. In fact, it did quite unwell, as a matter of fact. What was the situation there? Beyond the obvious that folks would have to drive out into the county to buy sugary drinks, was there something else at play there that made those percentages so huge?
Yeah, I mean, I think literally the millions of dollars that the big soda, I guess that everyone's calling it, dropped in. I mean, we know that there was a ton of money from both sides that came in from out of the state. But, you know, talking to friends that live in Santa Fe, they were saying, you know, that they received 1 or 2 mailers from the opposition, knowing that they had, while having friends that live on the south side of Santa Fe that were receiving things almost weekly. So they were very clear in their targeting when it was going to paid media. The other thing too, I mean, I really want to echo what Mary and Laura have just said. I don't think that this speaks to whether people support or do not support early childhood education. I mean, that did come out of this. People overwhelmingly support pre-K. I think the argument is still what funding mechanism needs to be used. And I think also echoing back on what Laura said, people don't want to see patchwork. You know, we've been playing this Band-Aid fix game here in New Mexico for years, and it really is time for Governor Martinez to start backing up the legislature and figure out a fix for this statewide.
What are the implications as far as you're concerned on the greater tax argument we're having now that we're going to talk about in a second that the governor is proposing? Does this affect that argument in some manner?
I don't think it does. You know, I think that the statements that Governor Martinez made yesterday and the day before, I think they're a little bit off topic. I mean, this was about a very specific tax, a brand new tax. The legislature has been talking about closing loopholes and fixing our tax code in a very specific way that people would want. They're not trying to introduce new taxes. I mean, yes, they did try to introduce one new tax, but that's not one of the largest bills that was vetoed. And I'm not sure if we're ready to jump into this part of the conversation, but I mean, Governor Martinez stating that she's been able to get compromise from the legislature. I mean, nobody has seen her bill. Nobody's seen her tax package aside from House Republicans. It's basically her showing her playbook to her own team. That does not a compromise make.
I'm glad you got that in. Yeah, please. Daniel, pick up on both those things, starting with soda tax. Your sense of why it didn't work.
This is a bad idea.
Okay.
I mean, it's a
Why?
really bad idea. Well, because if you have a 32-ounce soda, you're going to pay 64 cents more in taxes on a soda that's probably going to cost you 99 cents at the store anyway. I mean, there's just zero thought. It just shows you how out of touch the folks were that came forward with this tax. And then I think New Mexicans are tired of the bait and switch. I mean, Gary Johnson got elected governor on one thing, repealing the gas tax. Why? Because we raised a gas tax to fix roads and then we moved it out of the fund. New Mexico is famous for taxing you for one reason, and the money never seems to make it to the reason that you're going to tax them for. So I think New Mexicans are tired of that. I think people see through that. And I just think at the end of the day, you know, even though we've heard the concept of big soda money, you know, I think from the little bit that I saw, because I don't live in Santa Fe and I avoid going to Santa Fe, that, you know, the big soda people, they came off like the local guys. They came off talking about the jobs, the people that live there. The people who were pushing this tax came off like the big city out-of-towners. And I think it was interesting that, you know, in this case, the people who were trying to do the grassroots movement, you know, they really got labeled as the Bloomberg, New York elitists. And the people that were opposing it, you know, raising this tax came off as, I'm just the guy down the street that goes to work every day.
That's
I
interesting.
think a lot of that has to do with the targeting, though. I mean, back to what Marcia said, I think that the targeting was really important. And whoever they had as their consultant, as far as the anti-soda tax people, they were very good at just, you know, focusing in on who their voters were going to be, targeting those precincts, those neighborhoods that were going to be most affected. And I think it's absolutely right. You know, for a 2-liter bottle, that's about 65 ounces. You're talking about another $1.30. That's right. And in some cases, that doubles the price. And I think that kind of breaking it down to an individual household, think about how many sodas you're buying, you know, not that, I mean, for whatever reason, that's what you're buying. And so now you're going to have to pay more for it or switch and buy something different.
Let me ask you a question before we move on to the governor fully. Was the health angle just a non-starter? Do you know what I mean? The idea that if you reduce sugary drinks, obesity, childhood health.
Well, here's the problem. If you look at the way that other municipalities, San Francisco, Philadelphia, other places that have tried to pass a soda tax, they've connected it directly to the healthcare. In this case, they didn't connect it to healthcare; they connected it to pre-K. Exactly. So I think that the connection, the health benefits, were really lost in translation. They really didn't effectively communicate that to the voters, because the ultimate goal of it was for pre-K. It wasn't necessarily to fight obesity.
That's right. That's right. Good point there. Mary, the governor came out with a quote right off the top. We must reform the gross receipts tax. It's one of the worst in the country. Having a gross receipts tax instead of a sales tax, that scares businesses away. Getting into what she wants to do, 100 carve-outs, so to speak, in lowering the base rate. Let me take the latter first, lowering the base rate. I'm starting to hear rumblings from some people, maybe Democrats, who knows, that this, in fact, might not be a great idea because it lowers the amount of money we have coming in,
Exactly.
basically,
Right.
at a time we just don't have any dough. What
Right.
do you make
well,
of that?
I agree with that. And Jerry Ortiz Pino did a nice little editorial on that, and he said when Governor Richardson was governor, he got rid of a lot of the tax brackets, saying this is going to increase money, this is going to increase revenue because people are going to be spending more money. It didn't. We lost $100 million. And Governor Martinez tried to do the same thing. We also have lost $100 million. So I don't think that is a very good idea.
Yeah, Daniel, what do you make of the idea of dropping 100? Let me put it this way: as if the people that are being affected by these 100 carve-outs are just going to silently let this happen. Do you anticipate a huge fight on this?
Well,
or?
yeah. I mean, so if you look at the tax law in New Mexico, it always started out with the good intention, right? We're going to tax this.
Right.
But then everybody hires a lobbyist, and everybody gets an exemption, and they all get a carve-out.
That's right.
And so now we've got a gross receipts tax deal that is just, it's crazy. I mean, you don't know if you pay it, and you could maybe pay it. I have an example of an individual that I know that
Just because
came
we're
in-
short on time, is it politically possible for her to get what she's looking for?
Well, I don't know if it's politically
100
possible for her to get anything done in the last year and a half that she's the governor of New Mexico. I mean, it's clear the Democrats are drawing a line in the sand. She's been talking about addressing these issues. I mean, anything she brings to the table is DOA. The majority is not listening to it. They're not working. There's no compromise. And, you know, no matter what plan she brings to the table, they automatically oppose it and offer an alternative plan.
Are you talking Republicans or Democrats?
I'm talking about the Democrats. And the Republic, you know, the
She's got a lot
Republicans-
of Republican resistance at this point.
Well, she's got See, that's the difference between. I think that's a beautiful difference between the two parties in the legislature. When the Republicans have the governorship, we still openly oppose the Republican governor. It's funny how when the Democrats have the governorship and the legislature, it's just a blank check to get the
How
stuff done.
quickly
that
you
they
forget
need to get done.
about Governor Richardson and Linda Lopez and Governor Richardson and Senator Smith from Deming. They were not on the same page.
They
You
were not
remember
on the
that,
same
right?
page.
Hang on, guys.
They're
hang on,
not
just
the same
got
page, but
about a minute here.
I remember that
Marcia,
they got
Marcia,
all
let
of
me
his
get you in
agenda
here.
through.
Hang on, Daniel. Let me get Marcia in here. Possible to eliminate 100 carve-outs, you know, in a special session. You know
No,
what I mean?
absolutely not. Especially when we're talking about the fact that this special session is happening because the governor didn't want to govern during the 60-day session. She vetoed the budget.
Right.
You know, legislators actually put forth a bill where they would have given up their capital outlay, and it was supported by every legislator in both chambers.
Right.
She vetoed that. So I mean, she's clearly not wanting to govern. She just wants to play politics. And talking about the fact that people don't want to compromise, she hasn't shown anybody this package aside from, so far that we know, Republican Minority Floor Leader Nate Gentry.
Was that a reaction in your view to maybe the past couple, 3 weeks, maybe slipping from her grasp a little bit? Do you know what I mean? Universities don't have funding, the legislature doesn't have funding. She found herself in a jam, didn't she? Was this a way to kind of get the heat off of her?
I mean, it seems like it. It seems like she's having knee-jerk reactions, and they're not the right ones. We don't need knee-jerk reactions. We need thought-out, comprehensive changes if we're going to start
Have a
being able to
Supreme
move
Court
our state
hearing.
forward.
That's right.
Coming up.
On the 15th. That's
On the
exactly
15th.
right. That's right. When
So
we
I
come
think
back to
she's
the
going to
line,
show-
we'll talk about what's shaping up to be a very crowded race to become Albuquerque's next mayor.